Desmond Meade led the fight to restore the voting rights for returning citizens in Florida over the past several years. He has continued to fight because after the initial victory was won due to a new law introduced continuing to deny former felons and former returning citizens the right to vote through disenfranchisement. The new law requires that returning citizens pay an exorbitant court cost before they can have their rights restored. This process of paying court costs is long and complicated. Former felons must first find out if they owe debts, and if so, in which Florida counties. The price of debts often numbers in the thousands of dollars. For people that has been recently released from prison, that generally is out of reach. Former felons must also figure out which collection agency has to collect their debts. October 5th was the deadline to register returning citizens in Florida. Here to talk about the campaign to register returning citizens to vote and what the impact of this could be on one of the most important elections in our lifetime is Desmond Meade, Executive Director of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Thank you for joining us for Rattling the Bars. Amy Barrett was called in to help Bush's legal team decide how to help Bush win by getting the absentee ballots and other ballots recognized at that election, which Bush ended up winning. Now she is Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court from Florida. How important is her role in deciding what happens with the Florida vote if Trump decides to contest the results?
If she's confirmed. I mean, I like how you put the connect the dots on that, Eddie. I think it will be a very important role. I mean, we've seen the role that the U.S. Supreme Court played in Bush v. Gore back in 2000. And I never forget one of the dissenting justices wrote that, while we may never find out who actually won Florida that year, what we do know the biggest losers is the public's trust in the judiciary to be fair and impartial, right? And so I'm just praying that we don't have a repeat of 2000, and however the election ends, that it's decisive enough that will not require any serious challenges to the results.
Well, obviously you've been struggling long and hard for years, in fact, to win the right for ex-felons to vote. After you won that in the state government of Florida, they came back with a monkey wrench and put court fees and costs and so on it. And you had to go back into the field and fight and struggle to kind of like get that resolved. And so one of the things that happened is that there was a tremendous amount of money involved. Michael Bloomberg, John Legend, Michael Jordan, LeVon James, etc., helped. And now the Attorney General of Florida is trying to infer that that's a bribery to influence the vote. How are you dealing with that, or is that issue gone away?
No, that to me that's really a non-issue, and it's purely political. We've been engaging in fines and fees for over a year. And we have been raising funds from across the country. We have over 88,000 people who have donated to our fines and fees fund, and we've been working with elected officials in various counties throughout the state of Florida with no problem. And so this latest foray by the Florida Attorney General, probably nothing more than political, really. But we're still moving forward. We let our attorneys handle that. And we're going to still maintain our focus on the work that we're doing and the people that we're trying to help. And that's the 1.4 million people who should be benefiting from Amendment 4 passage.
The numbers I seen one time was that over 80,000 prisoners were disqualified because of these fines and fees. Since you've done this campaign, and obviously October 5th was the cutoff deadline, how many of those, and if those numbers are correct, did you actually get registered? And do you know?
First of all, our registration deadline was extended an extra day to October 6th because of the Division of Elections website failing on the 5th. So we did get an extra day. As far as the 85,000 number, those are individuals that are reportedly having some type of legal financial obligations. However, that's not clear. And there's still a lot of confusion, especially with the state. They still have not put together a centralized database that will give an accurate account of who owe and how much they owe. And so that's all right now speculative, because in addition to individuals who have registered since the passing of Amendment 4, we also have returning citizens who have registered prior to that due to the fact that they were able to receive clemency from previous governors. And so we believe that in those numbers could be some people who don't owe outstanding fines and fees, and those who do, but because their rights were restored through the clemency process, which doesn't require the payment of fines and fees, that they could erroneously be removed. And so we're watching that very carefully.
Okay, that sounds kind of I'm glad you have lawyers, because that sounds kind of scary, especially considering how Trump is carrying it up to this point in terms of recognizing, the legitimacy of the vote. Ex-felons allowed to do absentee ballots, and if it has that date arrived yet?
Well, first, returning citizens are. We're setting that ex-felon name, Eddie.
Okay, I got you. I got you. Returning citizens.
Yes. So and we probably want to try to shed that name, because when somebody do their time, they got their rights back. They're just like any other voter. So anything that any voter can do, a returning citizen can do as well. And in Florida, we can request. I think the 24th is the deadline to request absentee ballots to be mailed to people's homes. Anybody can do it, regardless of if you're a returning citizen or whatever. And they can mail their ballots in, or they can drop them off at designated locations, or they can go ahead and vote in person, which coincidentally on the 24th, we are holding, actually now it's going into a nationwide rally, Free to Vote rally, where in Florida, in over 30 cities, returning citizens are going to be leading their family members and friends to the polls to vote along with them in response to any attempts to intimidate or block our ability to exercise the right to vote. We were going to respond to that by showing up in even greater numbers. And we know that our colleagues and allies in over 20 states throughout the country is going to be standing in solidarity with us and engaging in some type of voting activity to show the world that at the end of the day, people with felony convictions don't scare easy. We don't intimidate easy. And we're definitely going to fight for our right to participate in democracy.
Okay, now, and obviously this is a crucial election. The one with Bush was crucial. the one with Carter and Clinton was crucial, but this one is really crucial. But I wonder if this after this, and Desmond, I've been knowing you for like years, if not decades. Are you going to continue to work to try to get the um, well, they're felons now inside the prison systems in Florida? Are you going to work to try to get them their voting rights restored? Is that a feasible thing in the future?
I think all things are possible. The state of Maine and Vermont, no one ever loses their right to vote. And so I know it can be done. Right now in the state of California, there's a Prop 17 is on the ballot, and that's going to extend voting rights to people that are on probation or parole. And so I think that it's a gradual progression. But I think eventually we'll get to that point where no American citizen is ever disenfranchised. I have sons who sometimes they make mistakes. They do some boneheaded stuff, but they still don't stop being my sons, right? They're still my sons regardless. And when you talk about voting and that being the greatest indicator of citizenship there is, you don't take away a citizenship because someone makes a mistake. Yeah, you punish them, do what you have to do, but they still should be American citizen, which means that they should still have the right to vote.
Okay, this is the final question. If you have anything to say to the public, or if there's anything the public can or should do to help you in the future, or with this campaign.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, folks want to really help free democracy in Florida because Florida is, forcing people to choose between whether they can put food on their table or vote. Right? It's forcing people to choose between paying their rent or their mortgage or their utilities or voting. And access to the voting booth should be unencumbered and free. And so, I would ask folks to join the thousands of patriots and defenders of democracy across the country and donate to our Find and Feast Fund so we can continue to remove obstacles and allow people, if they so desire, to participate in democracy, the opportunity to do so without being forced to choose between one or the other. And then I would also just encourage people that, for people like me who had to fight long and hard to get my right to vote back, I would encourage people that if you have the right to vote, if you're registered to vote, that you show up to vote. There's too many people that have sacrificed their lives just so we can have this opportunity. And we need to honor that legacy. But more important than anything, we need to honor ourselves, right? Because when we don't vote, we take ourselves out of the discussion and we allow others to decide, right, how our lives are going to be governed. And I believe that if you do have that power to vote, that power only shows up when you show up to the polls. And so please vote. Honor your legacy, honor yourself, right? Exercise your power by showing up.
Okay, Desmond, thank you. And thank you for joining this episode of Rather Than the Bars.